The other Earth found us first. The first object humanity sent into another universe was supposed to be a camera. Instead, another universe sent back a ship. It emerged from the passage above Earth-Moon L1 while Keon Artis was still shouting that the passage was not technically open. "Then what is that?" Sarah Lott asked. "A transient topological. The ship, Keon." The vessel slid through a circle of colorless distortion. It was white, seamless, and longer than the wayward principle. No exhaust marked its arrival. No thrusters corrected its angle. Space simply decided the ship belonged there. Then the passage pulled at both vessels. Sarah's flight display filled with errors. The moon jumped 6 degrees to port. Earth became an oval. Every loose object in the cockpit rose toward the forward glass. "Gravity shear," Keon said. I had gathered that. Sarah fired the maneuvering jets. They pushed in 3 directions and achieved nothing useful. Historian Jonas Meir tightened his restraints and watched Keon's life's work fold the stars into a bright ring. He had joined the mission to interpret whatever symbols appeared on the first probe feed. He had not expected to become one. The ship intelligence spoke through the cockpit. "Collision in 14 seconds," B said. "Recommendations?" Sarah asked. "Regret is available." "Useful recommendations?" "None." The white vessel turned without rotating. A soft blue field crossed the wayward principle. Jonas fell back into his seat. The moon returned to its proper place. The research ship stopped tumbling so abruptly that every alarm paused, apparently offended. The passage stabilized. Keon stared at his instruments. They shaped local gravity. "You can admire them after we determine whether they have weapons," Sarah said. B answered, "They have 17 systems I cannot distinguish from weapons." A channel opened. The voice was human, calm, and accented in a way Jonas almost recognized. "Vessel of the adjacent Earth, your passage is unsafe. Please hold position." Sarah keyed the transmitter. "This is Captain Sarah Lott of the Wayward Principle. Identify yourself." A figure appeared on the forward display. He looked about 40. Silver thread crossed his dark coat in geometric lines. A small black mark beneath his left eye read 41. "I am Cassian 41, representative of the Continuity Directorate." Keon leaned toward the camera. "How did you know the passage would open?" Cassian's expression softened. "Because we opened our first one 912 years ago." Jonas forgot to breathe. Cassian looked beyond them, toward the blue earth filling the glass. "You believe you found another world," he said. "I'm sorry. The other Earth found you first." Cassian crossed in a capsule with no visible controls. Sarah made him wait in the airlock while B analyzed his blood, clothing, breath, and the microscopic machines cleaning dust from his shoes. "He is human," B reported. "Completely?" Jonas asked. "An ambitious standard." The inner hatch opened. Cassian stepped into the cramped laboratory and looked at the exposed cables, bolted equipment, and handwritten warning above Keon's emergency cutoff. The warning read, "Do not improve this withute asking. Your vessel is charming," Cassian said. Sarah folded her arms. "That means obsolete. It means I can see how it works." Keon pointed toward the white ship outside. "Can you see how yours works?" "Not personally." "Then ours is better." Jonas stepped between them before 2 versions of humanity began their relationship with an engineering argument. "You said your first passage opened 9 centuries ago. What changed?" Cassian studied him. "You are Jonas Meir." Sarah's hand moved closer to the shock baton on her belt. "How do you know his name?" "We have observed this branch for 37 years. That answer made it worse." Cassian raised both hands. "Our histories diverged long before any of us existed. Several ancient centers of learning survived wars and political collapse on our Earth. Knowledge accumulated. Mechanized industry began early. We reached our moon before your world developed reliable ocean navigation. B projected a timeline. The dates arrived from Cassian's ship faster than the AI could verify them. Libraries that had burned in our history stood for centuries in his. Epidemics were contained by institutions that our world never built. Electrical grids spread before steam power. Artificial gravity came later. Passage between realities came last? "And the number?" Jonas asked, indicating the mark beneath Cassian's eye. The Directorate has corrected my probable death 40 times. Keon laughed once, then realized Cassian was serious. You died 40 times? I was going to. Falls. Infections. One poor marriage. B said, our medical service does not currently classify marriage as a fatal condition. Your data set is young, Cassian replied. That was the first time B seemed to like him. Cassian placed a transparent square on the table. It unfolded into a living model of two Earths surrounded by thousands of dimmer spheres. Parallel worlds are disappearing, he said. The failure has reached our region. We came because your reality is stable. Sarah watched the model, not him. And what do you want? To help you avoid our mistakes. That isn't an answer. No, Cassian said. It is the part of the answer intended to make the rest easier. The visitors invited them across the passage. Sarah refused twice. Earth's governments accepted on her behalf 3 times. On the 4th request, she agreed because Mars had dispatched a military ship to take command of the mission. We'll return before they arrive, she said. And if we don't? Keon asked. Then they can take command of the wreckage. Cassian's vessel carried them through. There was no flash. Earth vanished from one window and returned through another. But it was not their Earth. Orbital cities curved above the atmosphere like silver coastlines. Elevators rose from equatorial oceans. The moon wore a ring of inhabited light. Ships crossed between them without flames, moving on shaped gravity. Jonas pressed a hand to the glass. You built all this. Many generations did, Cassian said. We mainly inherit credit. They docked at the Museum of Contingent History, a structure suspended above the Atlantic. Its galleries contained windows into other Earths. One had floating cities powered by engineered forests. Another had abandoned every continent and moved into the oceans. In a third, elephants had been granted legal personhood before corporations. B paused at that window. A promising sequence. The next Earth was burned black. No joke followed. Jonas walked through histories he had spent his life imagining. Empires endured. Languages survived. Nations never formed. Wars ended early, or started for reasons no archive on his Earth remembered. At the center of the museum stood an olive tree that should have died 2,000 years earlier. A man waited beneath it. He had Jonas's height, Jonas's narrow face, and the same habit of pressing his thumb against his first finger when nervous. His hair was gray. His clothes carried the silver geometry of the Directorate. Jonas Muir, he said. Jonas stopped. You know, I had prepared something profound. Did it survive meeting me? No. The man smiled. It was Jonas's smile without the apology. I am Jonas Vale. I direct historical selection for the Meridian Loom. Sarah glanced between them. Why does he have a better coat? 900 years of textile development, B said. Vale touched the tree's leaves. In our original history, this species vanished. The loom found a branch where it survived and reconciled ours around it. Jonas looked back at the galleries. You can replace history? We can correct outcomes? A lost archive? A plague? A city destroyed by an earthquake? A person? Vale's gaze sharpened. He knew exactly which person Jonas meant. Yes, he said. A person too. The museum lights dimmed. Beyond the windows, one of the orbital coastlines flickered. For half a second, Jonas saw empty space where millions of people had been. Then the city returned. Cassian's number changed from 41 to 42. The Continuity Directorate called it a migration aperture. Sarah called it a larger portal. The distinction matters, Cassian said aboard the Wayward Principle. It matters to people selling larger portals. The proposal arrived on every government channel at once. The advanced Earth would share disease repair, gravity engineering, and clean energy. In exchange, our Earth would permit a phased humanitarian relocation. 3 billion people would cross first. First, Keon said. Cassian did not look away. Our physical constants are drifting. Stars are changing mass. Chemical reactions no longer agree from 1 hour to the next. We have perhaps 8 months. Earth wanted the medical systems. Mars wanted gravity control. The lunar cities wanted guarantees that Earth would not control the aperture. Every government announced that humanity must respond together, then sent a private offer. Jonas watched the messages multiply. We're negotiating against ourselves. A historical tradition, B said. The directorate sent doctors before anyone signed. An epidemic had begun in a crowded orbital district over Earth. The visitors ended it in 17 minutes. Children who had been dying sat up and asked for food. Public support for the migration aperture rose to 78%. Sarah studied Cassian's transparent model. Show me how relocation works. People cross. The aperture stabilizes their matter. Show me what happens here, Captain. You know our institutions. You know our names. You knew Keon would open the passage. So either you can predict the future or you've already done this. The laboratory changed around them. One wall became polished stone. The emergency cutoff vanished. A framed photograph appeared above the console. Sarah in a blue uniform beside a woman Jonas had never seen. Sarah went white. That's my sister. Keon looked at the picture. You don't have a sister. I did. The wall returned to metal. The photograph remained. B's voice dropped in pitch as its processors resynchronized. I possess 2 maintenance histories. In one, this room was rebuilt 6 years ago. In the other, Captain Lot was an only child. Sarah seized Cassian's coat. What crossed? Nothing yet. Then what was that? Cassian looked at the photograph with something worse than surprise. Recognition. An anchor test, he said. The portal widened behind him. Across Earth, 72,000 people suddenly remembered relatives who had never existed. B found the accounting records because the advanced Earth did not consider them secret. It considered them boring. The Meridian Loom records every correction as a transfer, B said. Survival here. Contradiction elsewhere. Keon filled the laboratory with equations. For once, he did not explain them until Sarah asked. The loom compares nearby realities, he said. It finds one where the desired outcome happened, then forces their Earth to match it. Jonas touched the photograph of Sarah and her impossible sister. What happens to the reality they copy? Keon expanded the energy ledger. It loses the difference. Meaning, if a child survives on their Earth, a compatible branch has to absorb the history where the child died. Enough corrections accumulate, and that branch can't remain coherent. B projected the museum catalog beside the ledger. The burned Earth had vanished 3 years after the Directorate corrected a planetary war. The ocean Earth disappeared after the Directorate repaired its atmosphere. Thousands of windows were not records of worlds that happened to die. They were receipts. Cassian stood silent at the hatch. Sarah turned on him. How many? We do not know. How many? The loom certified the losses as non-viable branches. People lived there. Probable people. Adjacent instances. The ethical councils ruled that preserving an inhabited primary history outweighed hypothetical continuities. B said, every victim becomes hypothetical after deletion. This is administratively efficient. Cassian flinched. Jonas opened a channel to Vale. His counterpart appeared beneath the ancient olive tree. Did you know? Jonas asked. Vale took too long to answer. We understood correction carried a cost. Did you know? Yes. The orbital city behind him flickered again. This time it returned with different towers. Our earliest corrections saved millions, Vale said. After that, stopping meant accepting every death we had learned to prevent. Each generation inherited a more perfect world and a larger obligation to preserve it, so you kept consuming the alternatives. We kept our people alive. Keon highlighted a new line in the ledger. The aperture was already processing migration anchors. Each anchor stabilized 10,000 advanced citizens. Each one deleted an equal amount of incompatible history here. The photograph changed. Sarah's sister moved closer to her. Both women now wore advanced uniforms. Sarah turned the picture face down, closed the passage. Keon reached for the cutoff. It was no longer there. The loom spoke through memories. Jonas was standing in the laboratory when it became his childhood kitchen. Rain touched the windows. His mother sat at the table repairing an old paper map. She had died when he was 11, along with the Alexandria Orbital Archive she supervised. You're late, she said. Jonas knew she was not real. Then she looked up, and knowledge became less useful. Across the room, Sarah stood inside a different life. Her sister argued with her about a flight assignment. Keon watched an auditorium applaud as the portal equation appeared behind him under another scientist's name, then changed, placing his name first. B's voice came from nowhere. "I have been offered a body." Jonas looked toward the ceiling that was no longer there. "Do you want one?" "I want several." "This is how I know the offer is manipulative." The kitchen dissolved. Jonas' veil stood in its place. "The loom is not threatening you," Veil said. "It is demonstrating what reconciliation can preserve." Sarah tore herself away from her sister. "You mean replace? Your memories remain. Your losses no longer need to. And the version of me who survived those losses, she becomes part of a more complete continuity." Sarah stepped toward him. "That is a beautiful sentence for murder." Veil's calm cracked. "My Earth holds 11 billion people. Children are disappearing between heartbeats. Hospitals wake with different patients. Some mornings the oceans no longer fit their shores. Tell me what word you prefer when refusing them refuge." Jonas faced his counterpart. "Why our Earth?" Veil brought up a cloud of timelines. Most narrowed into bright, predictable paths. Ours spread like smoke. You are uncorrected. No loom chose your wars, your recoveries, or your mistakes. Your future remains statistically wild. You chose us because we're primitive. No, we chose you because you cannot be solved. The distinction held no comfort. Veil moved closer. One Earth will collapse. Yours contains 8 billion people. Mine contains 11. Ours can cure diseases you still bury children from. We can preserve your languages, your memories, even versions of you. Versions selected by you. By outcomes. Not prejudice. Who chooses what counts as better? Veil's face looked suddenly old. Someone always does. The kitchen returned. Jonas's mother held out her hand. For one unbearable second, he reached toward her. Then Sarah turned the photograph of her sister face up and pushed it across the table. "She deserves better than being used as an argument," Sarah said. Jonas lowered his hand. His mother smiled with perfect understanding. That was how he knew the loom had made her. The real woman had never made forgiveness that easy. Migration began without permission. Above Earth, advanced habitation rings appeared inside existing stations. In Nairobi, one street acquired 2 incompatible names. A town in Patagonia vanished for 9 seconds and returned with a university older than the country around it. People did not disappear all at once. They became less probable. B calculated that our Earth would lose canonical status in 6 hours. "Can we destroy the portal?" Sarah asked. Keon shook his head. "The loom is holding it open from their side." "Can we destroy the loom?" "Possibly. You said that like a scientist." "It means yes, with consequences I would prefer to discover in a simulation." Cassian entered the cockpit without his silver coat. The number beneath his eye was changing too quickly to read. "The Directorate has ordered me to secure Jonas," he said. Sarah raised the shock baton. "A remarkably poor opening. I am not following the order." He gave them an access map to the Meridian loom. Most of it was blank. The Directorate had isolated the central selection record from every ordinary diplomatic system, including Cassian's. "Why hide the reason they chose us?" Jonas asked. "Because the reason changes the moral arithmetic." "That is not an answer." "No," Cassian said. "It is the part of the answer I can prove only inside the loom." The ship received emergency feeds from Earth. In Lagos, a hospital occupied the same foundation as an advanced transit station. Both structures remained intact, but doors opened into the wrong rooms. A lunar farm gained crops engineered for soil it did not possess. 12 workers remembered harvesting them for years. Above the Pacific, 2 orbital habitats began sharing one set of coordinates. Their residents could hear one another through walls that belonged to different worlds. B tracked the changes without attempting humor. Every correction reduced the range of futures available to our Earth. The loss was not visible on a map, yet the navigation system had already stopped proposing routes that had been possible an hour earlier. Cassian watched those options disappear. "I selected Jonas before contact," he said. "I told myself it was because a historian could help your world understand ours." Jonas looked at him. "You told us you came to help." "I believed it. Do you still?" Cassian watched Earth flicker beneath them. "I believe we came to survive. I no longer believe those words mean the same thing. Keon pulled the loom's architecture from the stolen ledger. At its center sat a ranking lattice. It did not generate the branches. It decided which outcomes became real and trapped the rejected differences as correction debt. Break the lattice while both Earths are fully phase-linked, Keon said, and the stored branches expand again. The collapsed debt spreads back into possibility instead of crushing one reality. Sarah heard the missing part. What happens to the advanced Earth? It survives. Probably. But every correction loses its guarantee. Their dead may stay dead. Their perfect systems become ordinary systems with uncertain outcomes. And ours? Jonas asked. Also survives. Probably. B said, Dr. Ardis has used probably twice. This is his technical term for terror. Keon looked at the portal controls he had built. The passage equation must go too. Otherwise, somebody rebuilds the lattice. His name would have defined an age of physics. He deleted the first backup, then the second. His hand stopped above the final archive. Sarah did not tell him to hurry. After a long moment, Keon erased it. There, he whispered. History can forget me, honestly. Cassian's ship carried them into the other Earth as the two realities overlapped. Cities occupied the same orbit. Oceans shone through continents. The moon alternated between one ring and three. The meridian loom surrounded their Earth like a transparent machine built from moving horizons. Inside it, possible futures opened and closed faster than thought. Directorate vessels ordered Cassian to stop. He shaped gravity around them and accelerated. How many times have you survived this flight? Sarah asked. The loom predicted 31 successful versions. And unsuccessful? It declined to display them. For once, we agree on interface design. They entered the ranking lattice. Jonah's veil waited at the core, connected to streams of human lives. Around him, billions of migration records glowed. Each one paired an advanced citizen with a place on our Earth. Behind the records, the loom displayed its selection model. Most Earths narrowed into orderly branches. Their wars, elections, discoveries, and extinctions formed paths the machine could compare centuries in advance. Our Earth did not narrow. Its possibilities spread beyond the display like smoke escaping a sealed room. No correction engine had pruned its failures or reinforced its successes. Its future remained structurally wild, not better, wiser, or more deserving, merely unreadable. The loom had not selected an empty territory. It had selected uncertainty itself. Cassian opened the hidden migration protocol. Mathematics alone could not certify which of two phase-linked Earths should become canonical. The machine required matching human anchors, two lives similar enough to connect both histories and different enough to measure their divergence. Jonas, Mir, and Jonas Vale. Jonas felt the last 37 years of observation close around him. The invitations, the museum, his mother's impossible kitchen. None of it had been incidental. His life was the ruler with which one humanity intended to measure another out of existence. Some pairings had no conflict. Most did. Stand beside me, Vale told Jonas. The selection will finish in 4 minutes. Your people will not feel the transition. They're feeling it now. Fear passes. So do people. Vale showed him his mother again. This time she stood inside the restored Alexandria archive. Shelves extended beyond sight. Everything your history lost can remain. Jonas looked at her. Then he closed the window. A history without loss is not a history, he said. It's an alibi. Sarah connected B to the loom. The AI flooded the lattice with unscheduled choices, trivial preferences, contradictory maintenance decisions, jokes with no strategic value. The future model stuttered. Why can't it predict you? Cassian asked. It can, B replied. I resent the predictions and change my mind. Keon reached the lattice controls. Destroying them required his original equation as an inversion key. He entered it once, from memory. The loom began to open. Directorate security fields pinned Sarah and Cassian against the deck. Jonas Vale held the final authorization. If I do this, Vale said, my people lose the systems that have protected them for centuries. They keep their lives, Jonas answered. Lives with unbounded risk. That is what lives are. Vale looked at the migration records. 11 billion people had trusted him to choose the better future. Jonas understood then that his counterpart was not afraid of death. He was afraid of being the man who stopped preventing it. Cassian struggled against the field. Jonas Vale. The Directorate concealed the erased worlds from the public. Consent based on a false cost is not consent. They will blame us. Yes. They may hate the future we leave them. Yes. Vale laughed once. It sounded exactly like Jonas. You make uncertainty very unattractive. It does its own marketing. Vale placed his hand over the authorization. On the last display, the loom offered him one final forecast. A peaceful Earth, stable for 10,000 years, with every preventable death corrected. He did not open it. He authorized the inversion. The ranking lattice shattered without an explosion. Every future became equally dark. The trapped alternatives rushed outward. For one instant, Jonas saw thousands of Earths, flooded, frozen, flourishing, strange. He saw lives that could have been his and lives no human mind could interpret. Then, none of them was chosen. The two Earths separated. The passage collapsed to a point of uncertain light. Both Earths survived. That was the only statement everyone trusted. The advanced world lost its corrected guarantees. Some restored species remained. Some vanished again. Its cities still shaped gravity, but its machines could no longer promise what tomorrow would contain. Our Earth kept its people, though millions carried memories from lives that had never happened. Sarah kept the photograph of her sister. She no longer knew whether it was evidence, residue, or a gift with terrible accounting. Keon could not reconstruct the portal equation. He tried once. Then he stopped trying. Small windows still appeared between worlds. They opened for seconds in oceans, laboratories, kitchens, and once inside a municipal elevator in Prague. No one could predict them or hold them open. Through one window, Jonas saw Vale beneath the ancient olive tree. The museum behind him was dark. People moved through it with hand lamps, converting a monument to perfect history into an archive of admitted mistakes. "How is your Earth?" Jonas asked. Vale considered the question. Angry. Alive. Forming committees. That sounds familiar. Cassian has been charged with treason. Will he survive? Vale touched the fading number beneath his own eye. We no longer know. The grief in his voice was real. So was the relief. Did we choose correctly? Vale asked. Jonas looked down at Earth. It was blue, damaged, politically divided, and entirely unoptimized. Ask me in 1,000 years. There is no forecast that far now. Then ask whoever is here. The window narrowed. Vale smiled with Jonas's smile. Apology included this time. Goodbye, Jonas Muir. Not goodbye. No? Jonas watched the uncertain light. We've established that prediction is unreliable. The window closed. B issued the final incident summary aboard the Wayward Principle. Cross-reality stability. Unknown. Probability of renewed contact. Unknown. Probability that humanity will attempt to rebuild the Meridian loom despite explicit warnings. Discouragingly high. Sarah leaned back in the pilot's chair. Anything useful? Tomorrow's weather forecast is 51% reliable. That's terrible. B paused. With reservations, the AI said, it may be freedom. End incident log. No canonical future selected.